fabulous February continues here on The Next Best Bet. This is episode 120. I'm Jake Higgins with Brett Levy, as always, and while I did toot our horn a little bit last episode, Brett, I continue to chip away at my January deficit. I'm only 2.87 units down on the year, a big climb from being nearly 10 units down at the end of January. And you know what? You're climbing back too. You still won your Levy lock. I won my pick of the pods. We're getting better.
We're getting better. You cursed me. You're a jerk. No, I'm messing with you, Higgins. No one to blame but myself. That's all I can blame. And we'll get back. We'll get better this episode.
Yes, we will. My Golden Knights money line at plus 110, great hit. You had a great Levy lock bet with your Wizards pick. They won outright. And then my pick of the pod, Jazz, minus 12. That team is just money against the spread. I couldn't take them on Wednesday night again against the Lakers, but I was tempted. That line was at minus 9. It didn't feel like too much, to be honest, so I'm curious to see how that goes on Wednesday. Let's jump out of that hindsight Higgins, though, Brett, and we got to talk about our Beginner's Boulevard, because typically we talk about a specific term in sports betting, but we're raising awareness here with what we saw as we were preparing our rundown tonight.
Yeah, Higgins, we always talk about knowing what you're betting and make sure you're paying attention to what you're doing. Well, we caught something interesting. The Clippers and Grizzlies are actually playing a back-to-back on Thursday and Friday, Higgins, and the FanDuel Sportsbook, we could guess, was trying to post odds for the Thursday night game, but the date on the bet was for Friday night. So that was an interesting note, and you don't want to place that bet because so much can happen in the Thursday night game. You don't want to get locked into something with the wrong date or the wrong time, something like that, where you're just unaware of the event scheduled.
And you don't want to assume that bet is going to get changed to the Thursday game, because once you place it, that bet, for all you know, is set unless FanDuel decides to be nice and change it to the Thursday game. And like you said, who knows what happens with injuries or anything like that in terms of rest days. So betting on a Friday game when those two teams are also playing on Thursday doesn't make sense, and you have to be very careful. And whenever you are unsure about what a line is saying in a sports book, either get clarification or just don't bet it, because it is worded however it is worded for a reason, whether we're talking about prop bets, whether we're talking about the date of the game being listed, like this FanDuel example, for example. So always know exactly what you're betting on. We've talked about this a few times. I've been burnt a couple of times on accident, and we've joked about it, and it always hurts when you get burnt on it, and it's always frustrating to realize you didn't bet on what you thought you did.
Yeah, just remember, double check everything before you hit submit, Higgins.
Well, let's talk about our NBA bets for Thursday, because although we're not going to be on that Clippers-Grizzlies game because we don't know necessarily what's going on with that, at least in the FanDuel Sportsbook. Oregon did have a sportsbook for it, or a sports line for it. I am going to talk about this Kings-Knicks game because I think it is very interesting, Brett. The Kings have been terrible. They've collapsed right before this All-Star break. People were talking about how De'Aaron Fox was an All-Star basically guaranteed, and then this collapse has basically taken him entirely out of that entire conversation and narrative, and now we're talking about how Devin Booker got snubbed, how Russell Westbrook got snubbed, and so until the Kings can prove they start winning again, I'm not going to be with them, so I'm going to take the home team slight favorite at minus 120 on the money line. I think the Knicks, they've been playing well recently. They're 6-4. They did lose their most recent game, but 6-4 of their last 10, I mean. The Knicks at minus 120 just feels like the right pick here, especially with all the trouble the Kings have been dealing with.
Yeah, Higgins, well, I hate to say it, I agree with you, so we're in some trouble here. It looks like the Kings are going to win this one, but I'm on the Knicks minus 1.5 here, so There is no way. Well, I guess you can win and I can lose, but that is a slim margin, Higgins. So, this feels like us jinxing it. But everything you said, I pretty much agree with. I think the Knicks are playing pretty well right now. Julius Randle, first time All Star. He's gonna want to continue to play well. So I think the Knicks are the side here, with Sacramento traveling to the East Coast, but it's not my favorite bet of the night. I like you. I feel like the Knicks are the side, so decent odds.
Yeah, you and I probably came as close to violating our pillars without actually violating the pillars. I honestly wanted that Knicks -1.5 as well. I saw you there, so I tried to sneak in on the money line before you could take both of those. In a sense, you're right. Technically, I could win and you could lose. There is a window for a 1 point win by the Knicks, but that is a very small window to happen. Odds are we would either both win or both lose.
The house is built on our pillars, man. So
Well, I do have one other pick in the NBA, Brett, and it's actually quite the underdog. It's the Washington Wizards versus the Denver Nuggets in Denver. And I like the Wizards on the money line here. And the main reason is, like I said, Russell Westbrook got snubbed for the All Star roster in the East. That man has shown when he is disrespected, he can do things on the court that literally no one can stop. Not to mention, he is paired with Bradley Beal, who's leading the NBA in scoring, and Denver is injured. They have 5 players listed as out. 2 of those are shooting guards that would have to do some of the defense of either covering Beal or Westbrook. So the line is at 7. I like the Wizards +7, but I do like the money line here, and I do think there is a realistic window for the Wizards to win this game. That team did start slow earlier in the year, but they have gotten a lot better. They're 6-4 in their past 10 games.
I guess I my biggest qualm with anything you said there, Higgins, was probably the fact that you think Westbrook was snubbed for the All Star game. Like, I
I
don't
don't
really think
necessarily
that.
I don't necessarily think that, but he may absolutely perceive it like that.
Okay,
I don't
okay.
I don't think Russell Westbrook necessarily deserved an All-Star pick. I think the guards in both the East and the West were very deep, and there were going to be people that missed it, that deservedly so. Russell Westbrook probably didn't deserve to be on this, but whenever he is disrespected in this league, we have seen time and again he comes out and just destroys entire teams.
Hey, I'm a Westbrook believer. I was on the Wizards in our last episode. They've since lost to the Clippers. They didn't look particularly great losing to the Clippers. I don't know. I'd like to see Washington win one again before I hop back on the train. But I agree. I like their guard play. So anything can certainly happen. I'll just counter it with the fact that Nikola Jokic is having an MVP season, and Washington is absolutely no big that can defend Nikola Jokic. So, if Bradley Beal may have an advantage at the 2, Denver's MVP has an advantage at the 5.
That absolutely makes sense. And to a point that you have also made a few times, Brett, this is the end of a 4 game road trip for the Wizards, and you never know how much a team actually wants to get back home potentially. So I know that's something that you've brought up a few times in our episodes that makes you a little hesitant for some games sometimes. I do really like this Wizards pick, and at plus 245, I think it's some really good value for a guard combo that I don't think can really be stopped. Jamal Murray can only cover one of them.
Yeah, and I think just to build off what you were saying, Higgins, yeah, I do tend to fade teams on the last night of a road trip, but in this particular situation, I don't think it applies as much because the Wizards were playing so well prior, and you like to win 6 of your last 7 versus coming home losing your last 2. So it is a big difference in feel in that sense, Higgins. And I think in that way, maybe they'll be a little more up for this game than some teams who will be trying to get back to home. I mean, let's just call it what it is. Everyone wants to get home at the end of even their vacations. They're ready to get home back in their own bed.
Yes, they absolutely are. Let's pivot into some college basketball, though, Brett. That's where you and I have some more picks. We're each on two different games. A big night in the Big Ten, too.
Yeah, big night in the Big Ten, lots of action. But Iowa and Michigan's probably the headliner here, Higgins.
Yes, this is going to be a very fun game to watch. I was I wanted to be on a side of it, and for a while I had a hard time trying to find the side that I wanted to be on because I really do like Luca Garza with Iowa, and I think if he has an on night, he is capable of outperforming anybody on the floor, really. And Michigan does have their young freshman down low, but we'll see how he handles a senior. That being said, though, I am going to bet on the Wolverines. I'm going to take them -4 in this position, and that's because Michigan has been fantastic against the spread this season. They're at the top of the Big Ten. They're one of the best teams in college basketball against the spread. 13-4. That is a 76.5% cover rate. And when they do cover, or on the season, they nearly cover by 4 full points. So Michigan at -4 feels pretty easy to me, considering that while I agree this is going to be a very close game, I wouldn't I wouldn't be nearly as confident on Michigan if I found that at 5.5, 6. I like 4 though. 4 is a nice number. It's just outside of one possession, and it's down the stretch. If it got to fouls, 4 is an easy number to cover.
All right, I think that's in play. I didn't have a strong enough feel on it, Higgins. I think, like you said, I think this is going to be a great game. Iowa's a very talented team, kind of underachieved a little bit this year. Michigan's been the class of the Big Ten. Illinois and Ohio State have played very well as well. So, lots of great teams in the Big Ten. I'm looking more towards the bottom of the Big Ten, Higgins. Northwestern travels to Minnesota. Sign me up. The Golden Gophers have a few wins. They beat Iowa this year. That's pretty good. They have some big wins, but they haven't been very good overall. I think they kind of are who we thought they were, to steal a line from Dennis Green. Uh, you
Did we let
know,
him off the hook?
we, I mean, I'll let them off the hook. I wasn't betting on them to do very much this year. They killed me in one Iowa game, but other than
Well,
that,
the books let him off the hook. The line's only 5.
books let them off the hook. Yeah, I think Northwestern's bad. I, I don't say that like really often, Higgins, but eesh. So I like Minnesota in this spot. I like Jamal Mashburn Jr., Marcus Carr, those guards to carry the way, and Minnesota will get it done here. -5. I like it on the spread. Sorry.
Okay. Both of these teams are just under 500 on against the spread, by the way, this season. So it really is a toss-up. Like, they're both just under 500 on the spread. I'm going to keep it in the Big Ten for one more pick, though, Brett, because, like I said, it is a big night in the Big Ten. There's a lot of good matchups. Ohio State at Michigan State. You talked about the bottom of the Big Ten. Well, let's talk about the bottom of the Big Ten. Michigan State. Not only have they underperformed expectations this year, they're not at the bottom in terms of the standing. That's Nebraska, who only has one conference win on the season. Nebraska has not played great at all. Michigan State, though, when it comes to against the spread, in the Big Ten is at the bottom of the conference. They've only covered 6 of their 21 games. Ohio State has covered 14 of their 23 games. Ohio State is second in the Big Ten in terms of covering the spread, going against the spread. Like I said, Michigan State's at the very bottom. So this just feels like a year that the Spartans are mailing it in. The Buckeyes are hungry. They are playing for seeding and positioning in terms of the Big Ten Conference. tournament, so this game means a lot more for one team than it means for the other. And at -4.5, Ohio State is a much different team than Michigan State.
Yeah, I mean, Ohio State's been really good this year, Higgins, and Michigan State, as you mentioned, has really underperformed expectations. And I think, Ohio State's still going to get up for Michigan State. Like sometimes in college, it is a little bit about the name on the front of the jersey. And in this case, Michigan State, like these kids, some of them might not have gotten recruited by Michigan State, and now they're on the better team. So they're gonna look forward to this opportunity to maybe stick it to Coach Izzo, and I could definitely see Ohio State covering this one.
Now, obviously, I would love for Michigan and Ohio State to cover, since I'm on both of those fan bases. Probably hate hearing me say that, considering they are bitter rivals. But Michigan is leading the Big Ten in the conference standings, but they only have a game and a half over Ohio State. Ohio State's sitting in third with Illinois just a game back of Michigan. So these last few games in the regular season before this conference tournament, I believe some teams have two, other teams maybe have three. Big seeding implications. Those teams are gonna get up for this, absolutely.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. I guess it's kind of hard to say because the Big Ten tournament's at a neutral site, so it's hard to like say like how much being the one seed's really going to impact. But obviously, you want the easiest path, so I guess you want to be the one seed. But I, I'll tell you what, I'll take Michigan to come out of the Big Ten tourney probably regardless of seed, Higgins. They're that good. They're really that good. They've got six guys averaging more than 8 points a game. They're pretty much led by upperclassmen, which is rare in college basketball, I guess. I don't know. The transfers make it so it's not as rare, but it feels like it's rare for these big programs, right? Like, how many times do you see seniors at Kentucky?
I know what you mean, but let's jump out of the Big Ten. We've talked about that enough, and we're going to head a little west because you do like a matchup in the Pac 12, but it's not your auto fade against Washington that we know and love.
No, Washington is actually playing on Thursday night as well. Hold
Against
on.
Arizona State.
Yeah, against Arizona State, who just blew them out. So I did not want to just fade Washington again, coming off a blowout to the same team. But this Wazoo bet makes a lot of sense because Zona's really good and Washington State's kind of up and down. Arizona's also got a postseason ban, so for some of these players, this is their last chance to get seen because they will not be playing in the Pac 12 tournament or the NCAA tournament. Those are postseason tournaments. Um, so, these guys only have a few games left in their season. They're one of the better teams in the Pac 12 that, won't be able to play in the postseason, Higgins. And I think they'll kind of take that to heart and maybe close out the season on a little bit of a hot streak. I'm going to be betting Zona to the end of the season, probably.
Against the spread or on the money line?
Yeah, just against this. I mean, I like taking points either way. But I'll always take Zona with the points just till the end of the season because I think they're gonna be motivated. Like, James Akinjo, like maybe he wants to go to the NBA. Like, put some good game on film.
That makes sense. Now, one thing I would warn you of, though, is Arizona is the second worst team against the spread in the Pac 12, second only to their state rival, Arizona State. Washington State, excuse me, is one of four Pac 12 programs that actually has an above 500 record against the spread. So just something to be wary of with that 9 point spread, which seems a little large to me.
Yeah, no, that's really good to point out, Higgins. And nine's a big spread, but Nebraska's 17-point dogs on tomorrow Thursday night as well. So these things can get crazy in college basketball. I think Gonzaga's up to 34-point favorites. So There are way bigger lines you could find, and maybe if you look at all that, the 9 becomes a little bit easier to swallow.
Absolutely, absolutely. You mentioned the Nebraska game. Illinois is hosting Nebraska, who just got shocked by Michigan State, by the way. I would expect a rebound by the Fighting Illini, but 17 points, that's a big cover. That's a big number. I'm not sure if I'm sold on that, even with Nebraska having only won one conference game. Um, USC Colorado. USC's played fantastic, and they're 2.5 point underdogs in Boulder. My eyes on that game. I haven't been able to pull my trigger yet, but these are the reasons why you should be following us on social media at MBB Pod on Twitter, at Next Best Bet on Instagram, and the Next Best Bet Facebook page and YouTube channel, because we do have other picks outside of this podcast, and we do post those on our socials because we only have our podcast for 2 weeks or 2 episodes a week, right, Brett?
Yeah, and make sure you're following my guy Jake on TikTok. He's got the TikTok picks going. He's all over the place.
Yes, I did mention that a couple episodes ago. I was thinking about starting the TikTok thing. I'm posting on my own personal TikTok page, sharing it on our Next Best Bet pages as well, though. And it's been going okay so far. But you got to start somewhere. So that's where we're at right
How are the dance moves? Are those coming along?
now. Maybe I need to bring in some dancing to get some more views because I haven't done that yet. Maybe I need to get my views up with some dances.
Bring in the dancing lobsters.
Exactly. Let's go into some money line magic, though, Brett, because you mentioned a great game from earlier this week between the Celtics and the Mavs. Absolutely came down to the wire.
Yeah, Tuesday night, the Celtics visited the Mavs, and I'm not sure if you caught it or not, Higgins, but I'm going to change the name of this segment to Luca Magic.
I caught some of it. I didn't catch the entire game, though.
All right, well, welcome to Luca Magic. We'll check in with about 3:28 left in the fourth. The Mavs held an 8-point lead, 101-93, coming out of a timeout. And a great ATO by Rick Carlisle and the Mavs. Jalen leads to a Jalen Brunson 3 to extend the lead to 11. But Kemba Walker and Boston would answer immediately, Higgins, with a 3 and the foul and 1. Kemba would convert and cut the lead to 7, 104-97.
You can't give Kemba the end one. You can't give Kemba the end one because what happens then? Boston goes on a 10-0 run. Kemba's the catalyst to all that. Boston goes on a 10-0 run. All of a sudden, the Mavs lead by just 1. And what seemed like a game that Dallas was in control of is now a whole new ballgame.
Yeah, you mentioned the 10-0 run. Both teams would then go cold or defense tightened up, whichever way you look at it, Higgins, for the next minute 18 until Jaylen Brown, the new All-Star Jaylen Brown, first-time All-Star Jaylen Brown,
Shout out.
would give the Celtics a 105-104 lead with 37.6 remaining in the quarter. The Mavs would call timeout, Higgins. Luca Magic time.
Oh, is that who's getting the ball?
That's who I'm drawing it up for. Luca
Okay, well,
would end up in a crazy ISO, Higgins, and he'd have Daniel Theis on him. And Luca would make him pay with a crazy step back 3 to take a 2-point lead, 107-105. Huge shot, timeout Boston.
and this is actually kind of where I tuned in. Like, I caught the very, very end of the game, and I tuned in during this timeout that Boston calls. Watch Jaylen Brown instantly tie the game back up with a driving layup that ties it at 107 apiece. And then Dallas inbounds the ball, and who's the ball going to? And Luka. That's who the ball goes to. And of course, he drains another 3, this one from the left wing, where he ended up standing out of bounds with about .1 left on the clock for the Celtics to try and come back, but they're down 3. There's .1 seconds left. You can't make a 3 with .1 seconds left. Game's over. Dallas wins 110-107. In a game that Dallas controlled pretty well, but Boston nearly came back from.
Boston nearly stole it. Luka willed his team to victory down the stretch there. Higgins with those 2 huge clutch shots. You talked about the game winner. He ended up basically out of bounds. So, I mean, This dude is just unbelievable. Luca Magic. That's the segment.
Meanwhile, the Celtics, they are having some interesting drama. There's some rumors, I think, surrounding Brad Stevens, even, so we'll see what's going on. They had a bad game against Atlanta tonight where they recovered a little bit, but they were down by more than 20 for a large stretch of that. The middle of that game ended up losing 127 to 112 to the Hawks on Wednesday night.
Rough. All-star snub Trey Young was probably out for blood, though, I could imagine.
I would guess so. I would guess so. And actually, yeah, he came out and had 33.7 assists. Nice game. Nice game.
Yeah,
He,
I think he was a little motivated tonight.
he definitely didn't mail it in. Definitely didn't use some FedEx office. A new year brings a new beginning, though. For all of our listeners that own a business, I want to tell you about FedEx Office. If you are just starting or have been running your company for generations, FedEx Office gives you the best way to print marketing materials, posters, signage, graphics, and so much more. With FedEx, creating, editing, saving, and ordering are fast and easy. We are teaming up with FedEx and Podgo to bring our listeners 30% off your next order of $100 or more at podgo.co/FedEx. That's podgo.co/FedEx for 30% off your next order. FedEx, the world on time. Now, Brett, we have a few more sports to talk about for this weekend. I do want to get to the UFC briefly a little bit in a second, but we have Thursday night hockey to talk about before we get to our weekend plays.
Yeah, we do, Higgins. And there are tons of games Thursday night on the ice. Devils, Sabres, Blackhawks, Blue Jackets, Bruins, Islanders, Predators, Red Wings. But I want to start off at Habs at the Jets because Higgins, the Montreal Canadiens have fired Claude Julien. And that means I'm betting on the Canadiens because I went 3-0 in fired coach games during the NFL season. And I
Yes, you
finally
did.
have a fired coach game during the NHL season.
There you go. There you go. And I understand your logic with that pick, but you're going to find me on the other side.
I'm sorry you're not hopping on the trend because it's a great trend to be on.
All right. Well, you and we're both on the money line. I'm taking the home dogs, though. The Jets, who they've played better than the Habs so far this season. And to be honest, I understand that Montreal just fired their coach, so there should be a little bit of a resurgence. But they lost back-to-back games to the Senators. I'm sorry, you have to prove that you can win again before I'm going to bet you on the money line. You just lost to the Senators not once, but twice.
Yeah, well, I mean, they made some changes.
They did.
It's literally just a motivational thing, right? Because the same guys are going out there, but they're gonna want to say, "Oh no, it was that guy that you just fired. It wasn't us. Don't trade me. You got rid of the problem. We're good now. We're all set. We're all in. Look, we're gonna come out here and beat Winnipeg on Thursday night."
This game has some division implications too, because Winnipeg leads Montreal by 1 point. By 1 point. So the only way that this doesn't implicate the standings would be if Montreal wins in overtime and then they're tied. Otherwise, you have Winnipeg stretching their lead or Montreal leapfrogging and taking the lead.
Yeah, no, it should be a great game to watch, Chickens, and I'm glad we're on opposite sides. And I'll make sure I break out my Canadians jersey and FaceTime you for this one.
Someone's going to be beating their chest in episode 121. That's for sure. That's
Oh,
for sure.
man.
So I do have one other hockey pick in this on Thursday night, Brett. The Penguins at the Capitals. Now, typically I would stay away from the puck line in these games because Pittsburgh and Washington, they're rivals. They have very heated relationships between Crosby and Ovechkin, always going to an extra level when they're playing each other. But you have to factor in the number. And against the spread or against the puck line, however you want to word it in the NHL, the Penguins are the worst in the league. They're actually legitimately the worst in the league. They're 4-13. The Capitals are the eighth best, ninth best. They're 10-8. They're just over over 500 in terms of against the spread. But Pittsburgh has been so bad that I'm going to ignore the fact that Pittsburgh has won 4 of their 5 meetings so far this season. I'm going to ignore that. I'm going to ignore the fact that I even picked Pittsburgh in Tuesday's game between these two, and I'm jumping to the other side. I'm taking Washington minus 1.5 in this game. It's plus 224 value on the puck line, and I think that I don't expect Pittsburgh to grab both games in Washington. I'm just hoping that Washington's able to get an extra goal somewhere. And the one win that Washington has against Pittsburgh this season was a 3-1 victory.
Jumping ship, I like it.
So it's an interesting pick. There's some data that works with it, and then you look at the head-to-head so far, and that definitely works against me. But Pittsburgh, 4-13 against the spread this year. That's very interesting. You got to wonder how much of that was them at a 1.5 puck favorite.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting to look at as well. But yeah, I mean, Washington at minus 1.5 at plus 224. You might as well take the shot, Higgins.
I like it. And if that one, I'm on 2 different Washington teams with over a plus 200. If one of them wins, then I'm up a unit between those 2 picks. That's how I'll look at it.
No one is a bigger Washington sports fan than you on Thursday night.
On Thursday night, I will be rooting for the DC teams. I will be a DC loyalist, that is for sure. One more subject, though, to talk about, Brett. I mentioned it before we got into the NHL. The UFC has Fight Night on Saturday, and I do have one pick for this card. The card is okay. I mean, there's some good picks later on down the fight. I am a little interested in even some of these prelim fights, but I'm going to stay away from them until day of. That's why you have to follow us on social media, because I'll make my UFC picks shortly before the fights kind of happen. I do a lot of my research for UFC day of. However, the one that I did my research a little early on was the main event fight. Jarzinho Rosenstrike versus Cyril Gaine. Gaine is 7-0, undefeated, and it's hard to bet against a man that is undefeated, except when you are talking about Rosenstrike. Rosenstrike's one loss is to Francis Ngannou. Only time that Rosenstrike's been knocked out. He has otherwise finished 10 of his 11 wins by knockout. 10 of them. Cyril Gaine, he has a few submissions. He's 7-0, but 7-0 is not big enough of a sample size for me. Both of these guys each recently fought Junior Dos Santos. Both of them knocked him out. Rosenstrike, if he gets taken to the ground, Gaine is at the advantage. He has the submissions. He has the wrestling. But Rosenstrike is hard to get to the ground, and I'm going to take him the underdog at plus 210 on the money line. I was looking at the method of victory, minus 160 for a knockout, technical knockout or a disqualification. If that moves a little bit closer to even money, I'll probably take it if it gets under minus 150. But man, that is going to be an amazing fight between two brawlers. And I don't know if you watched last week's UFC fight last Saturday, but that was also a heavyweight main event. And Derek Lewis shocked everyone and absolutely threw an amazing knockout that just stole the show.
Yeah, no, I did not catch last week's, but Rosenstrike's a name I kind of remember from the quarantine days, Higgins.
Yes.
So, it's good to see him back out there, and it should be fun to see him fight again. I'm looking forward to it on Saturday.
Both 6'4", both around 250 pounds. Pretty even matchup when you look at their body types, their measurements, and everything like that. But man, 7-0, it's just too small of a sample size for me. That's really what it comes down to here for me. I could be wrong about Gaine, but he's got to prove it a little bit more in the octagon. So we'll see. We'll see how it comes down on Saturday night. I'll have my other UFC picks on our social media, like I said. Make sure to tune into that. But Brett, before we get out of here, let's do our Levy Locks and Pick of the Pods. Your only win in episode 119 was your Levy lock, so I'm going to give you the honors.
Thanks, man. So yeah, I mentioned I'm taking Arizona on the spread probably here on out. So Arizona -9. I think, this is your last chance for the season to put anything on tape. And if you want to play at the next level, if you have dreams of playing at the next level after this season, show some good film.
Every game counts down to the end. Every game counts. I agree with that. Arizona -9. It's one of their last two home games, by the way, too. So who knows how influential that will be for some of those senior players as well, playing at home for the final game. I'm doing a college basketball pick as well. Michigan -4, and this is a hard pick because I think that's the game of the night, Michigan versus Iowa. But like I said, Michigan is one of the best teams in the country in college basketball against the spread. Michigan is atop the Big Ten for sure. They are in the top 10 overall in Division One. The only teams they trail are Prairie View, Drake, Weber State, James Madison, Navy, and Grand Canyon. None of those teams play the level of competition that Michigan's has. So Michigan's 13-4 record to me means just that much more. -4, like I said, if it gets to -5.5, -6 by the time you're listening to this podcast, I don't like that number as much, but at -4, I love Michigan, so that's going to be my pick of the pod.
Got it. There we go. Go blue and bear down.
Absolutely. Go blue, bear down. But there you have it. Those are our picks. Levy Lock, pick of the pod. Make sure to follow us on social media, like I said, at MBB Pod on Twitter, at Next Best Bet on Instagram, and the Next Best Bet Facebook page and YouTube channel. And if you want some of my picks, follow me on TikTok as well. That's at Snake Jigs, SNAKEJIGGS on TikTok. I'm trying to give out picks almost every day on there. I didn't get picks out on Wednesday, but you had the podcast anyway, so you'll get those picks anyways. This has been episode 120 of the Next Best Bet, though. For Brett, I'm Jake. We'll talk to you again after the weekend.